with it? Oh wait, never mind. I'll talk
And
about.
we are live for the first time since
Well,
January.
well, welcome to the stream, I guess. What we're doing at this point.
Yeah,
So
You forgot to do the
technically.
30. You forgot to do the
no,
30-second
let's not do it.
countdown.
Let's not do that.
Hmm.
I'll
Okay.
talk about it later or
So
tomorrow.
you already know where we are. So it's us. But if you don't know,
Hello,
I'll introduce
everyone.
ourselves. I'm Drift. My real name, I can't tell my real name because obviously, I don't give my identity to people on the internet for many reasons. Okay, for absolutely
I do too.
actually. This is a
Back then, I remember back then you had it in your YouTube description. You like a year or 2 years ago when you said what was your name. But there's nothing wrong with that.
I
When I
mean,
put
I
my
mean,
when I,
but like I prefer my username because more sedential. In other words, sedential. Okay. Anyways, and today we're going to talk about an incident that happened about um what if I'm like calculating. So this has happened around 38 years. 38 years and it happened. Usually we always talk about our documentaries, but we to instead of going Rex like always talk about America like big and happy. We decided we're gonna go out of America and in other country, which is of course.
Hmm?
Those who don't know about Canada, a brief of Canada. Canada is not north, right? Is it north?
Yeah, it's north of the U.S.
The U.S. Yes, north of the U.S. and
And it's
it's
and it's where next to Greenland on the
yeah.
west.
oh, I've heard about the Hinton train collision
Yes,
because
that's what we're talking about right now. Before, and also the little disclaimer: before we talk about this, let's have a dedication to the victims that lost their lives in this horrible accident that shouldn't have never happened. That's the thing. That's all I can say. This incident should have never ever happened in the first place. But let's get back to the details of right now. What we're gonna explain a lot of information is very upsetting and disturbing for viewers to take in. So, with that out of the way, let's continue. On February 8th of 1986, a V-Rail train, also known as V-Rail number 4, was traveling from eastbound from Jasper to Edmonton Station. The train was combined by a supercontinental and Skeena and consisted of 14 units in the following order. Among the engines was FP7 diesel locomotive number 6566, F90 diesel locomotive 6633, a baggage, which is number 617, a coach, snack bar 3229, a Skyline dome car, actually from a dome car, like to those who don't know, a dome car is that little big glass that's on coaches. Like you guys heard of that, right? Like you guys heard of those dome cars before, like the ones that are popular in locomotives and such.
The ones you could see that there's the beautiful view outside.
Yeah, you can see the beautiful view of every single type of scenes. In other words, like you see basically a good view vantage
Like
point
those
of
dome cars, like some of them that have the six axles kind of reminds me of the diesels in the UK.
some diesels are meant for that kind of stuff. Anyways, among them was also a coach of a snack bar. It concluded a snack bar car, a dome car, as I previously mentioned, two sleeper cars, and three engines. And I forgot to mention the other three engines, which was FP9ARM numbered 6300. steam generator was also another baggage car, a day night launch, steam. I know the train looks so like awkwardly awkward in and like it was like
Okay.
well, according to the
Guys.
sleeper car steam generator way for maintenance cars, and they were and as the train left on were 90 14 7 were on 115 passengers for with 50 my hell the and the brakeman and age 50 motive at the time. However, it won't make it to its next stop, which is Jasper. Further up the line, a Canadian National Train, or CN for short, actually was leaving Bayview was actually leaving to according to the accident report says it was like the Canadian National Railway train number 413 consisted of 3 locomotives and they were EMD GP38-2s and they were numbered 505086 and 2 EMDs locomotives. Among them was number 504 and another 5062. These trains were very common, and I if I remember correctly that these engines were like new at the time. Like if I'm wrong, like please let me know if I'm wrong. Like that's what it is, right? Like they were like consistent and they were new. If I remember correctly, they were new, right? Like these engines were new at the time, right? Like they were new machines, new diesel locomotive types. Anyways, back with the story. So, according to Canadian National themselves, they were pulling a high speed or snow spread.
Hi
35
guys.
hoppers. Hey, what's up? Oh my god, you scared me. Jump scared me.
Didn't recognize me?
No. I'm sorry.
Who? Wait, who are you?
Yeah, who
I
are
think
you? I'm
that's
sorry.
Dominic.
Oh, Dominic. Oh, hey, what's up?
Hmm.
All right. Anyways,
Oh yeah.
I'm just here
okay,
for a little bit since I'm also live streaming too.
that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Okay, the train was carrying a high-speed snow spreader, as I said, 35 hoppers with grain, 7 bulkhead flat cars that were loaded with large pipes, 45 hoppers that were loaded with sloper, if I'm correct, like sulfur or something. Uh, can someone tell me what sulfur is? I kind of forgot what is that. Like sulfur is like a Oh, it's a chemical. Oh, it's a chemical element. Okay, okay. It's a symbol of S of atomic. Oh, okay, okay, okay. And of course, not only that, but 20 loaded tanker cars that were filled with gasoline. 6 more grain hoppers, and finally, a caboose. To those who don't know, back then, before we had the new, like, this is 1986 we're talking about. This is 1986. We're not talking about the modern
And
technology that we have
someone
today.
said,
Like
oh,
back then,
Shane O with the Danny Phantom PFP said, fun fact, Jasper, Alberta was the place where the
Hey guys,
no
I'm gonna get going now. I'm gonna
engine
go back
alright,
to my
so
live stream. Alright,
number
bye.
yeah,
6060
bye.
was put on display from 1962 up until 1972, when the
How do I
6660
leave?
was chosen by the CN to pull CN steam program excursions up until 1980.
Oh,
Okay,
interesting
that's
facts.
cool.
Okay,
But
thanks for
Shane
the
O,
fact. Thanks for the actual facts.
yeah, but
Okay, so the train in total was actually 6,124 feet long, just like short of 2,000 meters. And of course, the crew of on board the CN 14. Um, According to the accident report, here is the engineer's name about who he was on board. And this will prove later in an accident report. The engineer involved was none other than 48-year-old John Edward Jack Hudson, or Jack for short, and the brakeman, Mark Edwards, who was age 25. And finally, in the back of the train, which was on the caboose, was Wayne Smith, or Smitty, age 33. So the crew had actually was waiting for the engines to pass, and they started to get on their locomotive while it was running, which is a violation. To those who don't know, it's a violation against getting on a train while the engine is still moving. It was common on locomotive engineers that they've done it before. Like, according to the accident reports, they say that a lot of engineers, especially Canadian national themselves, even say that that's against one of their rules. But some of the engineers just they just like do it because of many reasons. Like, it's just very, very, you know, kind of like it's just that, like, it's just kind of weird for me to know about, like, knowing that, like, the crew actually got on board the train, whether it was moving. Like, according to the accident report themselves, Elijah, would you play the clip? We actually do have a clip about a reconstruction of the documentary, so we'll play some of that. So this is Wayne Smith, as you see him. He is the Canadian national conductor. This is him, Wayne Smith. And first of all, you also have to remember this. They did not get that much sleep, especially the engineer and the conductor. So, like, they have no idea what was happening. And little did they know that sooner or later, a disaster would happen. Which is obviously something that we can imagine. But yeah, like, Jack, he was an expert of locomotives. Like, he was an expert. He knew what he was doing, in other words. The freight train finally left 40 in the morning, about 38 kilometers away from, halted at sidings outside, two eastbound trains to pass. It departed Medicine at 8:02 p.m. and traveled at 5 kilometers or 3.1 miles Hargwen. Hargwen, right? Is that how you spell Hargwen? Hargwen? At 8:20,
I think that's how you pronounce
it. Continue, go ahead. Because I didn't pronounce that right, but the train is at N or or TS, so that the freight train took the north to accident. This was the plan to try to um their plan was simple. The plan, like, here would just stop, like, start the switch next to Hinton. So approaching there, and honestly, and passenger train tracks, it's not common, as you see here. The CN train would go through the other track in Hargwen, right? And it will stop at a red signal, just like that. Then the V rail would pass it on the north track, and then the CN can join back to the same track once the V rail is clear. However, like the Chase Maryland collision to come in the next year, this wasn't the case. CN 413 doesn't slow down, and instead rockets through the junction, picking up speed at over 150 miles an hour, and forces its way back onto the main line with no derail to stop it, heading straight for the V rail.
Like if it was going like 150 miles an hour, it would have derailed off that switch.
It wasn't
Like-
going like 100. According to the accident report, they say the train, when it sped through the switches, it was going like around 80 miles an hour, if I remember correctly. It was going like over 50 miles an hour because the speed limit at that
Wow.
area was 50. And with the CN crew, they did not know what was happening at this point. Like the conductor, Wayne Smith, was not aware of what was happening inside the locomotive. And he also got alert from the signal because he's the brakeman. He gets a lot of signals telling him that, like, and he finds out that the signals that they're passing was warning, like red signals, and he doesn't know what's happening. And also, this is something that will lead up to investigation. Investigators believe that if like that the conductor Smithy, like the brakeman Smithy, was actually contacting the crew about the signals, even though it turns out it wasn't true at all. Like it wasn't true. It wasn't true. He was not contacting the crew. So he passed through the red So the engineer passed through the red signal, and this is something a mystery that people would never find out. What was going on inside the cab of the locomotive? We'll get to that part in a bit. At this point, the V-Rail train actually departed from Hinton, making its last stop. And also, among the passengers who were inside the coaches, who were inside the dome car, a World War II veteran, Kenneth Cuttle, if I remember correctly, was sitting in the dome car. If I remember correctly, he was sitting through the dome car, and he was a veteran of the war, so he didn't know what was happening at the time. And also, he spots something in front of him, like a light in the distance. To those who don't know, that no one knows what's really happening. The CN train does not slow down and continues to rock. And Kenneth Cuttle finally sees what was happening, although it would be too late to avoid the collision. The engineer of the Hinton train collision, as I previously mentioned, of the VRL train did not know what was happening. And Kenneth Cuttle sees something in front of him. CN 413 is right in front of VRL 4 on the same track. And then disaster happens. And that's something I did not know when researching this incident. Like, imagine a passenger seeing what's about to happen. It is just horrifying to see. Very, very, very horrifying. Like, just, I don't have words. I do not have words at all. And I think this might be appropriate time to play some sad music right now, Elisha. I think it's time to play some sad music. As the CN train still comes towards the sides, the passenger sees one of the passengers who I mentioned earlier was there, and also trains collided. It was a tremendous force. The trains just smashed into each other, just like two charging rams, at a combined speed of almost 125 miles an hour. It was around the same speed 94 was going when it smacked into the recon rails in chase. Truck after truck just bashed through the coaches and just going. And one hopper heck was launched up in the air and crushed one of the coaches like just a Japanese sumo wrestler. Finally,
He just blown into
Stopped.
smithereens.
it just stopped.
Hmm.
And then silence.
Damn.
Silence. Like, and nothing else to say. Silence.
Yeah.
Silence. Of the both lead locomotives of both trains were destroyed on impact. Among the dead was Jack Hudson, the engineer of the CN 413, killing their crew on board. The engineer of the V-Rail train was among the dead. The the brakeman um, was also killed in the CN 413, as well as many passengers on board. After this incident, it was just piles of wreckage. It's just something out of a war zone that just happened. I mean, I can't describe his image. I mean, this image is horrible. I have no words at all. Like, it was just
Me neither. Like, this shit is
horrible. Just
depressing.
horrible. I got no words, no words. Like, it's just horrible. The train cars look like, I don't know. It looked like someone just came in and just, like, these coaches look like they were thrown like toys. Smoke and diesel were just gutting out from the engines. When the train CM 413 stopped, when it stopped, when it stopped at the like behind the train, as I mentioned, the caboose was still intact. The conductor Wayne Smith didn't know what happened. Like, he felt a joke. Like, he felt the train stopped and he didn't know what happened. Like, he was like half asleep at the time and he didn't know what was happening. Um, According to some interviews to investigators, it turns out that he was either sleeping or he just dozed off on duty at the time. When he was, according to him, according when the CN train stopped just in front of him, he felt the train stopped. Like, he felt a jolt, I should say, like a jolt, like he was pushed back forward, and he just suddenly just stopped. He didn't know what happened. He felt the train stopped, and he didn't know what happened. But then he saw a huge ball of fire in the distance, and he didn't know what was happening. So he called his crew, like he went to the radio and asked his crew, and even asked dispatcher of what had happened, and he contacted emergency services. Around the same time as Wayne Smith was talking with someone on the radio, the conductor of the V-Rail train, who actually was the only one that survived from the crash, because at the time he was sitting at the back of the train. So, and because of this, he contacted the crew inside and asked them to help him. And still, like, the engineer, the conductor of the V-Rail heard the CN conductor telling his side of the situation as well. According to the conductor, who would later say, quote, he would say this, quote, "We need a lot of ambulances. We got people that are hurt. We don't know where we are, but we need help." Wayne Smith then reported saying this to dispatcher, and surprisingly, the dispatcher wasn't even like knowing what was happening. Instead, the dispatcher was like asking him about what signal did he pass. And Wayne Smith replied just saying, "I don't know." And then the dispatcher came back saying it was supposed to be red. And Wayne Smith just went in the radio. "Well, he must have passed the red signal then. I don't know. I never heard any contact from the front." Fearing that something happened to his crew, he gets out from the caboose and starts walking towards the scene. And there he would find police officers who actually arrive at the scene about 45 minutes later. And to their alarm, it's just nothing. It looked like when they saw the wreckage, it's just, they seen derailments before. In other words, a police officer even said, the first responders said that they saw derailments happen like this, but they never saw this magnitude of this destruction. Some officers were even trying to find anyone who could survive a collision like this. Two officers came towards Wayne Smith because they didn't know who he was, and then he told them that he was the conductor. He was the brakeman, and he asked them saying, "Are they alive?" And what he would hear next is heartbroken. Two officers came to him and told him that his crew was among the dead. In all, hundreds of people that are injured inside the coaches are either fighting for their lives to try to getting out of the train, or some of them just walking around just like zombies, just begging for help. However, there was little less luck for the passengers. In total, 23 people were dead. 74 others are injured. 71 others are hurt. I have no words. No words at all. Just no words. It's sad that these people just died. Just like that. As rescue workers try to get everyone out, the coroner came in to find the bodies that were deceased. Among the people that were hurt were passengers. One passenger even said that there was a child on board, and the child was with his mom at the time, and the child and the mom sadly did not survive, and they were killed on impact. It was, at this time, the worst train wreck in Canadian, and at this time in 1986, the Hinton train collision was the deadliest and the worst in Canadian National themselves, and also the worst in Canada history. Now we go to the investigation. Why did this accident happen? Why? What was going on inside the cab of CN 413? What was going on? Why didn't they stop? By morning, an investigation was launched. Apparently, an investigation was launched. The Canadian government set up a commission and inquiry to investigate the crash. It was led up by Justice Rennie P. Fossey, then of the Court of Queen Bench of Alberta, subsequently the Court of Appeal of Alberta. The inquiry lasted 56 days of public hearings and received evidence from 150 parties. The Fossey Commission published its full report on January 22nd, 1987. It's very clear that the CN train failed to stop, but there was a lot of possible thoughts about what really happened inside the cab.
It just meant there's gonna happen an accident.
Meaning there was a report of sabotage according to the TSB of Canada, the Transportation Board in Canada at the time. And according to them, they thought it was sabotage at first, that this was not an accident, this is some sort of sabotage or something.
This is like a murder case.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a murder case. Yeah, they thought it was a murder case, even though it didn't have to happen.
And then they get it to investigate who actually did it and kill them.
Not exactly like that. Not exactly, no. But face punishment, in other words. Face their punishment.
They faced punishment of what they did to what they deserve.
There was also possible thoughts. Remember that engineer I was talking to you guys about? Jack Hudson? You guys know him, right? The guy I mentioned him earlier? Okay. Well, there was some background stories about him, actually, by researching this incident, actually. According to some autopsies report from Jack Hudson, apparently Jack Hudson was actually a smoker, an alcoholic. He also suffered from both pancreatitis and type 2 diabetes that placed them for a risk of a heart attack, stroke, or even a diabetic coma in the accident. So,
and noted is not caused of cardiac arrest.
The engineer was incapacitated and passed the signal just like that. He just passed it because he was incapacitated for many reasons. He had type 2 diabetes, he had pancreatitis, which is cancer, and of course, he had enough sleep at the time.
He just slept all day. Not all day.
He only slept, according to the accident report, they say he slept like around 5 hours. 5 hours of sleep, even though we all know how many hours we need to sleep. 8 hours or more. 7 or 8 hours.
So it can make us feel better.
Exactly. And also, there was something interesting too. If the crew was indeed incapacitated, then why didn't the conductor, Edward, why didn't the conductor Edward actually didn't didn't rush to help them?
Didn't
Like,
get
or in other
rushed.
words, why didn't he
Didn't
take
want to get
control of the
late.
train? You know, because
Yeah,
like
didn't
I've
want to get
learned this
late.
from every single investigation I've seen. Like when people get incapacitated when they're driving a car or driving a locomotive, for example, then there's always supposed to be a backup person there, like another crew to help them in case if they get incapacitated for many reasons. Like the cause of the incapacitation is not important,
Guys, I need to go to
but
bed now. I don't have time. I don't have.
Oh, okay.
I
Bye,
don't have
Alan.
time to explain. Good night.
Good night, Alan. Bye.
Right. What was I
Okay,
saying?
get back
Yeah.
to where we started.
Okay. So apparently, because of Jack Hudson, like we all mentioned him, he suffered from pancreatitis and type 2 diabetes. That
And
made him
even
risk
a
being
cancer.
incapacitated for many reasons. He could have been incapacitated. But the question is, the conductor was with him in the lead locomotive. Why didn't he just, I don't know, why didn't he rush to his aid?
But he might be getting late or overslept.
He overslept. That's the thing. Yep, that's where they found out. Apparently, Edward did not get that much sleep, so it's possible that Edward fell asleep during the ride. Which
That's
that
why
should
you
have
never
happened.
gotta
Like
be
he
late.
should have
You had to
he should have
sleep
been fully
early.
alert the whole time. Like it should have been fully alert for him to know about the incident. So the commission further criticized CN's ineffective monitoring of Hudson's health condition. That state, quote, "The serious nature of Hudson's medical condition raises a strong possibility that it was a factor contributing to the collision of February 8th. The commission therefore concludes that engineer Hudson's medical condition possibly contributed to his failure to control train 413. The commission also concludes that there are serious deficits in the manner in which CN monitored and reacted to that condition. The commission finds that both the policies and procedures that permitted a man in Hudson's medical state to be responsible for the operation of a freight train on the CN main line to be unacceptable."
And this is the
Another
picture that we
thing,
saw.
like in other words, like wow, like when I read this, I think I know what that means. Like CN themselves did not care for the engineer's health. Like what the
They should have just
they
get to the
should have
hospital.
like they should have looked at their employees first before
They should have just take them to the hospital and just give them feel
or
better.
heck, maybe they would have done tests. Maybe they would have done tests. Who knows? Maybe they would have
But
taken
they
tests.
just they didn't care. They just being dumb or complete
Exactly.
insanity.
Yeah, the company itself is actually on hot water. I could just tell why Canadian National is on hot water.
Or maybe just got
Hot
controversy
water.
and complaints of employees.
I mean, yeah, it's like management. In other words, like management, like problem management is just something that contributes with CN. I mean, every railroad company is always like this.
They
And also,
always
there
follow
was
the
something
rules.
interesting that should have stopped the train to know, called the dead man's pedal, which a locomotive engineer had to be keep depressed for the train to remain underway. Were he to fall asleep or pass out, his foot would slip from the pedal that triggered an alarm and engages the train's brakes. It's like positive train control, in other words, like PTC. Like, for me, positive train control is like something that could have prevented
Plus, it was
the
not to be
accident.
confused with PTSD.
No, I said PTC, positive train control.
I just said it's to not to be confused with it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, good point. So basically, there was a dead man's pedal that was in front of the locomotive. Like it was in front of the locomotive of the first engine of 413, which is 5586, which was the lead locomotive. And
Did it sadly
here's something
crash
else
for
too,
some
though.
reason?
Yes. Yes. Also, there was something else too interesting about the locomotive. People, of course, previous engineers of this locomotive, 5586, actually said that this engine actually was uncomfortable, like having a comfort cab. In other words, engineers complain about these cabs being um uncomfortable for them. Like in other words, they complain about like their back getting hurt and so on and so forth.
And this is another image that you saw.
Yes, and like right for here. But this could have prevented the accident if the second unit was driving. That's the thing. What if the other two units was driving in front of the locomotive and not the lead one, which is this one? Maybe it would have been better if the locomotive was just in the front, and so on and so forth. Wayne Smith, the conductor, no, the brakeman who survived the collision was taken to court because they wanted to find out what really happened to him at the time.
They wanted to know. They like, I don't want to change their minds until I see the results. What happened?
Exactly. They want to get testimonies. In other words, the report also noted that although the front end and the rear end crews should have been in regular communication, not appear to be in the case in this accident. However, as the freight train reached Hargwin, engineer Hudson radioed back to the conductor Smith that the signals were green, a communication that was heard by a following freight. As it runs towards Dalehurst, there was no evidence of further communication. In other words, a lot of misreports stated that the engineer was contacted with the brakeman, even though that was entirely true. Engineer Hudson was incapacitated at the time, so that's why the brakeman did not hear him back.
Then why they didn't hear Hudson?
Exactly, he did not hear Hudson because he was incapacitated. He had a risk of having a heart attack or stroke because he was at a risk.
Even type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, exactly, because he had 2-type diabetes. Yeah, because that means he was going to have a stroke or heart attack. It's still unknown what really happened, but according to the autopsy reports, they are not clear about what really happened with him, so it still remains a mystery out there.
And it remains like a theory or maybe some sort of what could happen if
me, I don't believe in controversial stuff, but to me, I believe he probably just had a heart attack.
Just be a theory.
For me, I would say he was incapacitated. I would say he got incapacitated. That's it.
Yeah, whatever happened to Hudson, it felt bad for the family.
Yeah, that impacted his family too, also, yes. Also, the conductor who was in charge of the train, Smith, he said, so if Smith felt that the train was out of control, if there was a serious problem, he could have pulled the cord of the brake in the caboose, because at the time, cabooses do have an emergency brake that'll stop the train in time. But he didn't pull the brake.
I'm gonna go.
He did not pull the
brake.
Bye. See ya. In other words, they didn't pull the brake. And he could have activated the brakes to stop the train. However, Smith, who was testified and he was nervous when he was getting interviewed by the court, said that, quote, he did not feel that the freight train was ever out of control, misjudging its speed. He also testified that he attempted to radio Hudson on 2 radios and several channels, but neither seemed to be working at the time. Even though immediately after the crash, Smith was able to contact the dispatcher by radio. In any event on a failure to receive communications from the head end, regulations required him to activate the emergency brakes. So in other words, like if he would have just braked the caboose to know if the train was there, probably the train would have stopped just in time and the accident wouldn't have happened. But well, I don't blame Smith. It feels like everyone's just like blaming Smith for everything, even though I don't blame him at all. Like, do you blame him? Do you blame him? I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. He just didn't know what he was doing at the time. He just didn't know what was happening at the time. For me, he just didn't know what he was doing. He was confused. He didn't know what happened inside the cab. And it still remains a mystery to this day, honestly, about what really happened to him. He was also testified against in court to understood about his witness statements. Of course, that would never lead to a good side to him, however, because obviously it would never happen. Because because like of course he would be out of charges if I remember correctly. Like he would later say that like Smith was later he was later well he was his charges went dropped, in other words, like his charges for the incident was later like according to the documentaries I've seen about this incident, they say that the conductor was was not charged was not charged at all, but still they were both to blame for the accident nonetheless. In other words, like he wasn't sentenced to anything really. He wasn't sentenced to death nor anything like that. He was just excuse me, he was just sentenced to he wasn't sentenced or anything like that, so that's good. He didn't deserve that because he did what a normal brakeman would have done. Like it's just something I just can't describe. I mean, what do you think about this, Elijah? After reading this, what do you think? To me, it's just something I just can't describe. Can't describe it either. Um. Anyways, um, this this incident like could have been preventable if it wasn't for like the crew and such for repairing and so on and so forth. But in the end, uh, they the court decided to try the trial into finding out what really happened. The inquiry was finally published in a full report on January 22nd, 1987. The inquiry concluded that no individual was to blame. Instead, it condemned what falsely described as a, quote, railroad culture that prized loyalty on the productive at the expense of safety. As an example of lax altitudes to safety, Fossey noted that the engineering crews that took over trains at Edston did so, quote, on the fly, while the locomotive was moving slowly through the yard, as I previously mentioned. The new crew would jump on and the previous crew would jump off. While this method saved time and fuel, it was a flagrant violation of safety regulations, which required stationary brake tests after a crew change. This was also a contributing factor of what happened with, and this will also be something about brake testing because in 1989, a few years later, the San Bernardino accident would happen, and the crew was the incident was caused by the train being overloaded, and the brakes failed as a result of that. So they didn't take their brakes, in other words. So management claimed to be unaware of this practice, even though it was quite common. In regards to engineer John Hudson, the FICE Commission concluded it was the possibility that the collision happened because he had either fallen asleep at the controls or had suffered a heart attack or a stroke due to his extremely poor health. Wow. I have no words. No words. In other words, there also was no evidence could be found to explain why the freight train failed to stop at the absolute signal at Dalehurst control point. After a wrong side signal problem was eliminated, human error was considered the only possible cause. Tests on the crews remains ruled out drugs or alcohol as a cause, though it was revealed that the engineer of the freight train, Jack Hudson, was of course, an alcoholic and heavy smoker. And he suffered pancreatitis and type 2 diabetes, which put him into a heart attack or stroke. So, like, in other words, they were like trying to find out if if his heart attack was really a thing or not, even though it was indeed a factor that played in the accident. Um, in the end, um, in the end of the accident, the crew of the CN were obviously to blame for the crash. They were the ones to be blamed in the accident. But however, that doesn't make them be guilty as one of them, because obviously this is obviously false. And I know you're thinking, why is that? Well, there was something controversial to this day about what really happened. And Smith, the conductor, was dismissed from CN in July of that year before failing to stop the train through the crew was unresponsive on their way. After Smith's testimony, Justice Rand P. Fossey, the commissioner from the Court of Queen's Bench of Alberta in charge of the investigation, was able to conclude and establish the blames for the accident. And of course this concluded the CN crew. And here's the rules of what really happened with them. Jack Hudson, the engineer, failed to observe signals and to stop the train before entering the single track section. Mark Edwards, the brakeman, failed to intervene with Jack, therefore failing to stop the train or observe signals as well. Conductor Smith, Wayne Smith, I should say, the conductor, was guilty as well for failing to apply the emergency brakes when he couldn't contact the front end. After the accident, both CN crews did not return to work. Wayne Smith was dismissed from CN and was fired. As for the two crew members, however, they were sadly killed in the incident, and no criminal charges were against them. But they were both to blame for the accident because of this. After the accident, most of the stocks, like the rolling stock and almost all the locomotives, were damaged beyond economically repair from the collision, and they were subsequently sold for scrap. The only engine who was able to survive was 6300, was 6300. The FP9ARM, as I previously mentioned, was repaired after this collision, and it returned to service following a rebuild with an entire new cab from a Kansas City Southern F7. It was the last FP9 in service on the V-Rail before it was retired in September of 2011. And it was subsequently acquired by the British Columbia chapter of National Railway Historical Society, or NRHS. As of 2023, 6300 resides at the Heber Valley Railroad in Heber City, Utah. However, even though there were new changes following this accident, there were still more accidents to happen. Later, on January 4th, 1987, the Chase Maryland collision would occur. But even though it's already been 38 years since this accident, and with all these changes, collisions are still something that we can't avoid happening. The Chase Maryland collision, for example, 1 year later, in January, or the Chatsworth Station in 2008, which we will have a video about that incident in the future, as well as the recent 2018 Case South Carolina train accident that happened because that involved an Amtrak and a CSX freight train. However, that will be getting its own video. The accident would remain the deadliest and the worst in Canadian history, but it was surpassed by another incident that would happen in 2013 in Lac Megantic. That wreck killed 47 and injured many others. That wreck killed 46 and injured many others. So this is it. This is the end of the story, and it's heartbroken to know about this incident. It's just very something I can't describe. I mean, for me as a train enthusiast, I'm here. It's very devastated to hear about these accidents happening. I give my respect to the families of the victims that did not make it out alive in that incident, and I want to say, like my heart goes out to you guys. Like my heart goes out to you guys for the victims, especially Elisha's and everyone else's. It's devastated to listen to this accident, and honestly, this accident should have happened. I mean, you can't prevent stuff from happening, dude. Engineers are very. It's according to some engineers, it's very hard to find some sleep, or even have a nice time to have a break. I mean, you can't prevent disasters from happening, but you can learn lessons and reduce the severity of these accidents. And ever since then, no more accidents has ever happened in Canada, but there would be one that would happen in 2013. But that's a different story. I would say we should give 20 seconds of silence for the victims, a moment of silence for the victims of the 25 passengers and crew who were killed in this tragic incident. 20 seconds have passed, and it's very sad to talk about this incident that should have never happened. This incident could have been preventable. If if the company, honestly, people blame the engineer for this incident. I personally don't blame him. I don't blame him. Don't blame the crew. Don't blame everyone. The only person I blame is the company. I blame Canadian National themselves. They were the ones that did not decided to fail on their employees to take care of them. It's, I mean, to me, it's very sad that a lot of companies don't care about their employees' health or their condition. It's a sad society that we live in. Some companies just care about greed and other stuff. It's devastated. I just have no words. I have no words at all. It's just something I just can't describe. It's sad. It's very, very, very sad. I mean, we live in the world of this, and it's very sad. I wish this incident shouldn't have happened. I wish this incident shouldn't have happened. Well, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have some suggestions, then we'll let you guys know. Me and Elisha would definitely do these kind of content, and we'll look on something else that we would like to, you know, that we would like to, um, we would like to, we would like to talk about next. I mean, we could talk about other train wrecks that we could talk about, and yeah, so on and so forth. It's just something I can't describe. Tragic, only it's something, it's devastated, and just, yeah. mean, I got no other words to describe. It's just devastated. If I'm gonna be honest, it's just devastated to listen and honestly know about this incident. I would say it would have been preventable, but I don't know. It's just something I can't describe about this incident. It's just I'm sorry, I'm just lost at the moment. It's just I'm lost in the moment. I mean, if you guys want to make these kind of videos, just leave below to see these kind of videos, and we'll try our best to be more informative next time, because I know some of our videos we don't be that much informative at times. We usually use other resources that we can find, and yeah. I mean, it's not funny, but like it's just something we just can't do all the time, you know. Anyways, like I'm just saying this in my own perspective. This incident shouldn't have happened. It could have been preventable, but you know. And yeah, I have no words at all to describe this huge tragic thing that should never have happened. If I'm gonna be honest, it never should have happened. Never. Well, that's it for me. Anything else you want to say, Elijah? Because cause like we've been here for like about about 50 minutes. Oh my god, I thought we were going so fast. I didn't even know if that was actually doing something like this. But yeah, it's just something I can't describe. It's just something I just can't comprehend. It's just something I can't describe at all. It's just something I just can't be formative at times, and it's very difficult to go on in life and so on. Well, um, well, I would like to say thanks for watching at the end of the video. I hope you guys didn't get stayed up or anything like that. And this is Drift King 0311 signing off. We'll see you guys in the next stream. Bye.